Hi guys, how's it going today? So the video is going to be basically a coding project. A lot of you have been asking in the comments for a while now if I can do another one of these types of videos where I take an idea and I start writing code and just see what comes out the other end. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm also going to be working with some technologies that I haven't worked with in a while. I'm not going to be using a framework for this. I'm just going to be using JavaScript and jQuery, HTML and CSS. Nothing else. So this is a really beginner project, beginner friendly project, or even an intermediate project if you're still learning. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into the code. Okay, so first thing I'm going to want to do is open up a GitHub repo for the project we're going to be making here. So you can go up here and look at the video that's about to pop up and see how to open a GitHub repo. But I've got one opened up here that I've also got open here in VS Code. So what are we going to be building today? So I found this cool API. It's called the dog API, and you can find it at dog.co/dog API. And basically on every call to the API, you can get a random picture of a dog. How cute is that? See, a little beagle, awesome. So basically, the first step that I want to do is look at how I want to build my site, how I want it to look, before I even get into functionality. So there's a great website here called wireframe.cc, where you can basically go and build a little wireframe for a page. You don't have to pay, it's completely free. You can't save it on the web, but you can download a version of it here in the free version without signing up. So basically what I'm going to be doing is building a header, like a nav bar, let's say, with a title in it. I'm then going to have a button that's centered, and I'm going to have a picture. So every time, in terms of functionality, that I click the button, I'm going to get a picture of a new dog to show up in the view. And what technologies am I going to be using to do that? So I'm going to be using, in this instance, jQuery. Even though it's an older framework and people aren't using it that much anymore, it's still widely in use throughout the industry. And if you're coming to build a quick project that you need to do a quick API call, you don't want to write it in pure JavaScript, use jQuery. It's fine. Nobody's gonna, tell you off about it. So I'm going to be using jQuery for this. I'm going to be using Bootstrap to kind of put everything together. Again, it's not the most fashionable CSS package. It's not the most modern. It's not the coolest. But for me, it's the one I learned. It's the easiest I find to work with. It's quick for prototyping. You can chuck it in, you don't need to install anything, you can just use it in a file and just get working with it immediately. So that's why I'm using jQuery and Bootstrap, and obviously the dog API. So yeah, let's just jump into the code. Oh, another thing I've done, I've used Chrome web server to just run the project file here in Chrome. It's just linked up to my VS Code here. So let's just jump in and start writing some code. So first thing we're going to want to do is make a new file called index.html. And I have a plugin here in VS Code that I can just select HTML5, hit tab, and I get a HTML5 file written out for me. So I don't need to do it all by hand. Now let's make a site CSS file and a site JavaScript file. And now let's go and link them in. And I want to make these two at the bottom of my header. So I need to do link, and that is going to be site.css. So I have some cool plugins here that you can use to make your life a lot easier when it comes to writing code. src. So this is actually going to be good fun for me because I haven't worked in pure HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in a long time. So you're really going to see my method of working here. I'm going to get stuck. I'm going to not cut the video and come back and pretend I know everything, because I don't. So let's go into the JavaScript file and just make it run itself when it loads. And let's just test that works. I'll just write myself a quick alert. Every time, hello with a W. See that? It did it in there again. Hello with a W. Save it. Go over here. Reload. Boom. Hello. So my JavaScript is linked up to my HTML and it's working. And then if I just type body, background color, let's make that red so it stands out. Save, reload, hello, and it's gone red. So I can see my HTML and my CSS is linked up and is working. Awesome. So that red is really annoying me. Let's reload it and back to white. So let's go and bring in our jQuery first. So I go to jQuery.com, hit download. I like to use a CDN, a content delivery network, for bringing in the files, and I like Google just because it's fast and they have data centers all over the world. And this way I don't have to install it, I don't have to muck around. I literally just bung that tag right there in the header, and every time the index.html loads, they go to Google, they bring jQuery, and I don't need to worry about any of it. So that's that, and let's go to Bootstrap as well, hit download, and again I want to use the Bootstrap CDN. So let's just take all this, I can just use copy, and bung that in there, because I like my stuff to look neat. Let's format the document, hit save, and there we are. So now that I've got Bootstrap and jQuery, I don't need those anymore. I've just got some open tabs here of the components I'm going to be using. But let's go back over to the wireframe. So let's think about how to structure this. So I've got a header up here, I've got a button in the middle, and I've got a picture down here. So the header is going to take up the full width of the page. Obviously the button is going to want to be centered in the middle, and the picture is also going to be centered in the middle of the page. For two reasons I'm doing that. Number one, it just, for something very simple like this, it's kind of nice, have it all in the center, not off to either side. And number two, if you make your window smaller or larger, it's going to always stay in the center of the window. So it's going to be a bit responsive in that respect. I mean, that's going to be a nav element in HTML. I think that's going to be a container div that's holding a button. That's going to be another div. And a div that's holding an image, which is going to be changed dynamically, basically. And I can stick some padding and some margins in between them. And yeah, let's make this look nice. So, because I am in index.html, I'm going to be doing this all in the body of the page. So let's start by making a nav element. So that's going to hold my nav bar. Wait, no, maybe I don't want to do that. No, I do. I do want to do that. I want to make a nav. And I will explain why in a second. Because basically I'm breaking the page up into elements here. Now I'm going to have a div with a class of container, which container, yeah. Which is going to have a div with a class of row inside of it. And that is going to be holding my button. So here is the button. And then underneath that, I'm going to have another div class row. And that is going to be holding my, here is the image. Here is the image. That's it, I think. So, yeah, so I've got my nav, which is going to be holding this nav bar. I have a container, which is going to be holding basically the body of the page. And then I have a row, which is going to hold my get a dog button. And I'm going to have a row, which is holding my image. So, because Bootstrap is awesome and they've got pre-built components, I'm just going to go in here and use this nav bar. And look, you see here, they even gave me the nav with all the classes and everything already built in. So by me writing nav was kind of useless. So I've got a nav bar in there. So let's just take a hit and save and reload. And there we go, instantly I've got a nav bar on the page. And what did I call my site? What dog? So let's go back to the HTML and change that to what dog? Question mark, save, reload. There we go, what dog? So we're already there. We've got our header done. Great progress. So now I want to progress down the page. I don't need navbar anymore. And I want a button. And I want a cool button that's kind of animated when you hover on it. I just suddenly large button caught my eye. But I like success. I like when you hover that, you get green, and it's kind of cool. So I'm going to take that, and I am going to go back into here, and I'm going to stick that in there, hit save. Sweet, I have a success button. And you can see here that this padding here on the side, that's because I've given the div that's holding this button, div class container. Container is a saved like class name that's used by Bootstrap. So container will always sort of give a margin, some padding at each side of the page. If you use container fluid, I believe, it lets everything just stay to the edge and you can sort of play with that manually. So that is a success. And I am going to be using a card for showing my image. Oh, sorry about that. It's always talking suddenly. Okay, so I'm going to be using a card for my image. I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that in there. And I don't need any text on my card, so I can get rid of that. I can also get rid of card body. And that is not going to do anything at the moment because I haven't got an image. But again, what will that do? It's probably going to give me an error. Yeah, okay. So I've got an error image because I don't have this image saved locally. And my alt is going to be a fun picture of a dog. So when it comes to alt tags, this is something that's useful in SEO. You know, when you get to that point, alt tags, if you know what a set image is going to be, if you know kind of what a dynamic image is going to be, try and give it a good alt tag, because in the world of, you know, accessibility settings and people needing to have accessibility on a site, it's kind of good to have a very descriptive alt tag, because that way a screen reader will be able to go over and actually tell a user what that image is. And number two, Google gives you a big thumbs up for having good, well thought out and descriptive alt tags. So just something to bear in mind. Okay, so now let's tidy that up. And reload the page. And we're all good. So we've got success, I've got my card, and that's about it really. So now what I want to do is I'm going to get a bit tricky, and let's see how this is going to work. I'm going to call this new div I'm writing here, I'm going to call this page container, there we go, which is not a saved class name by Bootstrap. I'm going to take this stuff and I'm going to chuck that inside. I should really learn what that shortcut is. It's Alt Command F. Let's find replace. What up? Oh, Alt Shift F. Okay, Alt Shift F. So this is kind of how I work. I kind of, you know, start working, start typing, get a bit sidetracked, learn some new stuff. So come on, Alt Shift F. Okay, so what I've done is I've stuck my two rows inside of a page container. Why have I done that? This page container, I am going to open up a class for it in CSS, and I'm going to make this page container flexbox, basically. And because I'm still learning how to do flexboxes and stuff, there's an awesome website here called Flexiboxes. Just search Flexiboxes in Google, and this is the first thing that will come up. And it really gives you a visual aid to do flex and work with flex. So obviously I want my container to be flex, and I want my direction in this case to be a column, because I want button and the image underneath of it. I'm going to have no wrap on it. I'm going to have everything at flex start, so that means it's going to be at the top. Align items, I want them to be in the center. That's fine, I don't need to do anything with that. And those settings are also good. So now, what it gives you is a lovely output of CSS that you can just go into your project, paste that stuff in. There we go. And then look, Shift Command F, formatted, love it. And let's just also just take a shot. Let's just see if that worked first. So now it's here in the edge. If I reload, there we go, it's centered, perfect. What I'm going to want to do as well is, this has got a class of row, but I'm also going to give it an extra class as well. It's going to call button. I'm going to call this one button row. I'm going to call this one card row. And what it's basically going to give me is a little bit of control over positioning, basically. So if I do button row and I should give that quickly a border. I love how when I type, it kind of just comes out like this. 1px solid. It's like I have to spell it out for myself. And I take hard row, and that is now going to get another border of 1px solid, and that one's going to be red. Save, save, reload. Okay, so I can now see that my button and my picture are wrapped, which is good. And now I can give those some properties. But why am I doing it in there when I can be using my dev console? So, button row. So I've got my border on there. Let's give it some padding. Let's see what 10 pixels does. Nice. Okay. So let's make that padded up to 25 pixels. And while we're at it, let's give card row some padding. Let's give that 25 pixels as well. Let's give that one actually some padding of 40 pixels. So now I can just go here, copy that, go back into the code, stick that in there, go here, copy that, chuck that into the code, Command Shift, Alt Shift F, there we go, lovely, reload, and that's taken effect there. Cool, so that is my styling. Like that's the styling I'm going to do for now. So just get rid of that border, and get rid of that border. So you can see I've now got a button, and I've got something that will be a picture of a dog. As you can see, it's kind of like my design. I just need to change that button text to get a dog. Let's go over here and get a dog. Hit save and reload. And I didn't get rid of the stuff in CSS, the borders. Just get rid of those. Hit save again, hit reload again, and there we go. So there we go. I have my HTML and I've got my CSS done. Now let's get into the JavaScript side of things. All right, so HTML, CSS done. Let's jump into JavaScript, which I am terrified of because I can't remember how to write jQuery. Document. I think that will give me a... No, wait, what have I done wrong there? See, we're off to a good start. I haven't used jQuery for so long. Document ready, jQuery. Because I haven't used it for so long, I'm going to be Googling a lot here. So what this basically does is, once the site.js script loads, it's going to run this normal JavaScript function, which is going to run the jQuery. It basically just runs everything on startup. I think if I do that, no. I was wrong. Let's just have a little look at the documentation. Got to write a function inside of the function. Okay. Function. Now, any jQuery that I write in here basically, will be run or it'll be set ready at the beginning of the site when the index page loads, basically. So what do I want to do? I want to use jQuery to basically call this API. I'm going to get this response back in JSON, and then I want to take this URL and basically print that URL, not print it, but use that URL in here to basically show the picture of the dog. So it's going to require two different functions, I think. One is going to be obviously calling the API, getting a response back. And the other function is going to be then taking that URL and dynamically placing it in the DOM to render the image. And because I don't remember how to do this is going to be, I'm guessing this is going to be a get. But you know what? Actually, looking behind the scenes on my computer, I'm going to just jump into Postman, and I'm not going to bother with playing around with jQuery. Let's just use a tool that you normally use. No, thank you. Remind me later. And if I just bang that in there, send. As you can see, it is a get. Just hit that in, and I get that back, and that gives me a URL, which is awesome. And bang it out again, new one. So it's a get, and it works. So thank you for that, Postman, and bye-bye. jQuery get request. I think my chair just slipped down a little bit there. jQuery get. There we go. That's given me a nice example. And again, it might look like I'm just copying and pasting code here, which I am, but I know what I'm doing with it. Basically, like I know what it does. Not that I don't know what I'm doing with it, but I know what it does. Obviously, the jQuery documentation is awesome if you want to read through it. I also recommend the Mozilla Developer Network documentation. Is really, really, really good for kind of reading through and getting the behind the scenes, like kind of explaining how it works. But slowly it's coming back to me. If I stick the URL of my API now in this $.get, that's basically jQuery, which is the $signifier, I guess. .get, it already automatically knows I'm going to be doing a GET request with whatever URL I'm putting in here. And then after it's run, it runs a function which is going to have data. So data is the response from the API. And in this regard, I'm just going to comment that out for a second. And I'm also going to get rid of that. And because I am fun, I'm going to console log out my data. But that isn't quite enough. What I need to do actually is I need to call this function somehow. Actually, no, I don't. I do, but I don't. You know, I'll explain why. Because I've put this just in the body, if I just hit, see, like, it just runs every time the page is refreshed. Like every time the page loads, this get function runs because I haven't wrapped it in anything else. All I've done is just put it in the JavaScript to run. The second the JavaScript loads, this function will load. So if I reload the page, I've got toy poodle, I reload the page, I've now got chow. So I can see automatically, even though I did that by mistake, I can see that my GET request in jQuery is working. But I don't want it to run every time the page loads, because that'd be stupid. I want it to run every time the button is clicked. When I say get a dog, then I want the function to run. So what I need to do is go in here and add an ID to the button. Let's give it a unique identifier. Let's call it get dog button, because that's exactly what the button is going to be doing. That's a very specific function that the button is going to be doing. And now let's see if I do remember my jQuery. $, not in quotes, $, $, open those, and I want pound symbol or hashtag get dog button click, and then on the click function, that's going to be running a function. Inside of that, I'm going to be running my, you know what? No, I'm not going to break that down to a function because it's in jQuery. I'm just going to do that. Get rid of that code there. And now every time I click the button, it's going to run the get request, get me a random dog, and print out the data. So let's see if my theory is correct. Go away 66 update. Get a dog. There we go. Get a dog, get a dog, get a dog. So now every time I click the button, it's rerunning the function and it's getting me a new URL. Fantastic. So I've got the dog here in this little variable. But can you write functions in jQuery? I can't remember. Function, just call this test. Oh, that is a bit of Angular autocomplete there. No, why is it doing that? Seems you can't do that in jQuery. Okay, no worries. I should do it all here in the response, really. So that little sidetrack there was me thinking maybe I should write a function to take the URL for the dog object that I've gotten back and use that function to then print it out in the HTML. But I'm not going to do that. I am just going to do it the old-fashioned way. Or, to be honest, I'm going to do it the way I learned how to do it. So, number one, I've got this data object back from my API. So I've got an object with a status of success and a message, and the message is the URL that I'm going to want. So if I just quickly just copy that, bang that in there, you can see I've got an image of a dog here. Awesome. So first things first, I've got my data object here. So what I'm going to do is in my response from my get, I am going to do this. I'm going to make a variable called dog URL. And in there, I'm going to access the data object message. And now if I console log out dog URL, hit save, response, reload. You can see here I'm now on site.js line 13. I have the console log of dog URL. So I've now accessed the object and pulled out the URL from the object. And I've put it into a variable. Now I need to see if I can remember how to do this without looking at Google. I have my card and I have the src here. I need to somehow put that URL into this src, or I need to make it show up somehow. I can't remember how to do that, so let's just Google it. jQuery show, apply URL to image tag. Change image src using jQuery. There we go. Seems simple enough. If the src attribute of the image is blank.gif, so I want to be looking for, okay, so that's basically saying I need to access my image tag on the DOM, and then in the attribute part of it, say the source is going to be the URL. So let's just take that, so I don't have to keep hopping back and forth. Just paste that in there. Let's give this an ID just to make sure that we're actually going to be accessing it. An ID is a unique identifier. Like, you can only have one on each page. I could have here, 20 image tags on the page, but I want to give this one a unique ID. And let's call this one dog display image. It's the hardest part of programming, it's coming up with variable names. Put that in there, dog display image dot attribute src, and now this is going to be a real just shot in the dark. I'm now feeding this attribute function src, so it's going to be going over here and looking for the src, and it's going to be taking the dog URL and hopefully sticking that straight in there. So if I reload the page, get a dog, it worked. Every time I click the button, I get a new dog image. I am very happy. When I say what dog, I say get a dog, and I get a new dog image. And it's just for the fun of it. Have a look at that in responsive. You can see how the nav is a little bit annoying in the responsiveness, but you can see when I resize the image, it's keeping everything centered. If I stick it on, let's put it on a pixel 2, it looks alright. Get a dog. If I stick it on an iPhone X, also get a dog. Working. So it's a responsive site built in HTML, a little bit of CSS using Flexbox, and a couple of lines of jQuery. And that is basically accessing an API, more or less. Yeah, so there we go. That was a little code along project that you can do at home. Obviously I've linked the code down below to the GitHub repo where I've got it if you want to have a look at the code and kind of see what I did. If you have any other ideas for videos like this you'd like to see, then please go ahead and leave them in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. If you've stayed with me till this point, I really appreciate it. And once again, just thanks for watching. If you want to go ahead and subscribe, then please do. And until next time, thanks a lot.